Whereas today, our TVs are the size of a Harrods shop window, so seeing him on the news, IMAX size, you're suddenly struck by just how grotesque he was. And every time his image popped up, it was like having a spider crawl across your brain. But the man himself was dead, so there was no prospect of a trial, apart from the inevitable dramatised one Channel 4 will probably do next autumn season. So instead, the hunt was on for someone or something to blame.
One immediate suspect was the time period of many of the allegations itself, the 1970s, a decade of brown air, awful furnishings, nihilistically bad hair, industrial action, dead pig carcasses all spinning around, and tear and piss-streaked concrete. And almost as a reaction to the grimness of that, 70s culture was spangly and brash. Much of that culture looks outrageously alien to modern eyes. Young women were blithely lobbed in to zhuzh up almost any form of entertainment. Leering at them was always hilarious, and their age often seemed completely immaterial.
Some of the things you see are quite an education. Just look at that shower. Blimey, they're big for their age.
And what about the culture within the BBC in the 70s? Was the corporation hiding something? And what about today? Had it shunted a Newsnight Savile investigation of its own aside to make room for a lukewarm Christmas tribute with all the entertainment value of a blocked hose? Many thought it had.
Faced with the heinous allegations, the BBC immediately launched a far-reaching, comprehensive f***up. First, new DG George Entwistle tried to wow reporters with his fancy bartending skills. God, it's like watching Tom Cruise in Cocktail. Then, in a masochistic move, BBC One ran a panorama investigating Newsnight, while simultaneously on BBC Two, Newsnight was commenting on Panorama's investigation into itself.
As you watch this, Panorama on BBC One is broadcasting interviews with members of the Newsnight team.
And if you press the red button now, Newsround investigates Watchdog, while Watchdog asks, was there a country file ring at the BBC?
While the BBC agonised, the press had the perfect story. It had everything: paedophilia, the BBC, a whiff of incompetence or corruption, Britain's most notorious serial killer, and a dead celebrity who couldn't sue. There were also Savile's astonishing links to the establishment, to the Prime Minister, to the NHS, to the royal family. It was all just the right breeding ground for conspiracy theories, which quickly flooded the internet.
Meanwhile, a rudderless Newsnight suffered a complete nervous breakdown, and in a classic example of BBC oversteer, ran a report which didn't seem to have been fact-checked very thoroughly. A report which wrongly claimed a senior political figure was a child abuser.
Soon the names of supposed suspects were being gleefully circulated online, and Twitter turned into a depressing guessing game, which proved to be the final death blow for an already beleaguered DG. And the whole affair reached a strange new low in an uncomfortable edition of This Morning.
David Cameron was on This Morning, and you could see he was tense because he was being interviewed by Philip Schofield. And you never know what Schofield's going to do, because he's a maverick. He might suddenly ask who your favourite X Factor judge is or something. Just spring it on you like a grand inquisitor.
Philip Schofield had gone on the internet and he'd found the names of these people. And because Philip Schofield's a good bloke, you know, he didn't just walk away, you know, turn a blind eye. He wrote the names down, and he spends like, you know, a whole 3 minutes doing this, you know, really puts his back into it. And then later, David Cameron's on This Morning being all like, oh, you know, I'm the Prime Minister, and doing his serious face and his hand gestures he learned in Prime Minister school. And Philip Schofield, right, goes like, bang, here's a list of pedos, fucking sort it out.
I have those names there. Those are the names on a piece of paper. You know the names on that piece of paper. Will you be speaking to those people?
But instead of thanking him, Cameron goes all pissy about it, going like, oh, that's dangerous.
I think, Philip, this is really important, right? Because there is a danger, if we're not careful, that this can turn into a sort of witch hunt.
There's no point in a witch hunt against pedos, because pedos are harder to spot than witches. So a witch hunt isn't enough. We used to have like trials in a court when someone was a paedophile, right? But that cost loads of money, and sometimes it didn't work because you'd find out they weren't one after all.
But now, because we've got computers, we can decide, you know, who's a pedo or who looks like a pedo, and then work out, you know, what they've done and make up all the proper facts and everything, and then find out where they live and tweet the coordinates and get together and go around and kill them with their bare hands right in their own homes. I mean, that hasn't actually happened yet, but it will. And it'll probably happen next year, and it'll be brilliant.
2012 was a bumper year for elections, with more crossing box action than 10 tic-tac-toe tournaments glued together in an awkward metaphor.
The French traded Nicolas Sarkozy for Francois Hollande, the Egyptians traded Mubarak for the Muslim Brotherhood, while Russian voters had a thorny choice between action man Vladimir Putin and action man Vladimir Putin.
Some found the choice so thrilling they voted again and again, like this man expertly captured feeding ballot papers into a box over and over again, like a human photocopier. This was exactly the sort of thing that led some cynics to claim the election might be rigged.
Hence sporadic outbreaks of nudie protest and the presence of a team of foreign observers headed by a Dutch politician who immediately rendered the news fantastic thanks to his completely brilliant name.
The government's control of the whole electoral process rendered the vote unfair, according to Dutch observer Tiny Cox.
The Russian presidential elections showed a clear winner.
Can't be much fun being Tiny Cox on election night. Everyone awaiting the result, constantly asking, is it in yet?
When the victor was announced, there was a massive swing from Putin to more Putin, and the man himself was so delighted he pissed his face. Meanwhile, in Greece, ominous coverage highlighted a growing taste for fascism, courtesy of Golden Dawn, a far-right party with a logo that looked like a cheap swastika knockoff made in Crete. ITN sent a slightly anxious-looking James Mates in to meet a spokesman who was sitting in a cut-price fascist lair looking like a bit of bad Gary Newman fan art.
Still, if Mates was nervous, he needn't have worried. Golden Dawn members only hit people on camera if they're women, as this shocking incident on live Greek TV demonstrated. But these events were mere bum garnish compared to the US election, which was altogether more exciting, because it was like a movie.
It's your vote, your future, your country, your choice.
As the US election inched nearer, it was clear Mitt Romney, a sort of Bob Monkhouse action figure with the personality of a VAT return and the voice of a Dignitas tour guide, was in trouble.
Despite resembling the president in a 1960s Marvel comic, he had a likability issue. Many saw him as a heartless corporate millionaire, partly because the news media repeatedly caught him sounding like a heartless corporate millionaire. In a series of astonishing scenes, he blurted statements like, "I'm not concerned about the very poor."
"I'm not concerned about the very poor. We have a safety net there."
Said he liked being able to fire people.
"I like being able to fire people who provide services to me."
And claimed that corporations are people.
We could raise taxes on people. That's not the way. Corporations are people, my friend. We can raise taxes on. Of course they are. Everything corporations earn ultimately goes to people. So, where do you think it goes? What? Whose pockets? Whose pockets? People's pockets.
Yeah, and who made those people's pockets? Corporations. Yeah, back at you, Romney.
When Romney wasn't pulling a Montgomery Burns, he was captured babbling cluelessly, like his mouth was being operated by Norman Wisdom.
I'm not familiar precisely with exactly what I said, but I stand by what I said, whatever it was.
In a bid to stoke enthusiasm at the Republican convention, the party wheeled out the legend that was Clint Eastwood, who promptly held a mystifying debate with an empty chair.
Presumably he'd been told they were going to CGI Obama in post-production.
What do you want me to tell Romney? I can't tell him to do that. Can't do that to himself.
Having mistaken a fellow piece of wood for the most powerful man in the world, Eastwood then crumbled in the face of the chair's rhetorical skills.
What do you mean, shut up?
Still, at least around now, it seemed things couldn't get any worse for the Romney campaign, until they inevitably did.
Yes, Romney was caught on a hidden camera bad-mouthing 47% of the US electorate, the kind of soaring rhetoric that usually saws your chance of winning in half. And as the first debate loomed, the media was already reciting lines from Romney's obituary.
The wheels are coming off the Romney campaign.
But then something odd happened during that first debate. The slick-assured Obama people thought they knew was nowhere to be seen, having traded personalities with Eastwood's chair.
You know,
now it was Obama's turn to be pilloried in the media.
Instead of making dramatic points, the president meandered.
Suddenly all bets were off and Romney started creeping up in the national polls. And then, perilously close to Election Day, politics were temporarily blown aside by dramatic disaster movie footage as Superstorm Sandy smashed into New York.
Oh my God!
Our tree! It's a disaster. Terrible. Terrible, terrible. And we're going to be voting. I don't know how we're going to go out to vote.
New Yorkers, they always brag. We're the best city in the world, and we're the toughest, and I'm from New York. And yeah, you're a badass. Yeah, till you get a little rainfall, and then you going, oh, I've been 12 days without power.
Somebody get here, help us, please.
It was the opposite of after 9/11. They made a lot of news about, oh, New Yorkers are getting together and for the first time, they're meeting each other, they're helping each other out, they're sharing their grief. Well, you should have kept that up and been nice to your neighbor for more than a week after 9/11. Because there's probably 10,000 people within walking distance that have power, but you've been a prick to them for the last 11 years, and now they fucking hate you again. Suck it, Mr. Soggy Socks.
Meanwhile, back in election land and away from the TV cameras, nerdy Moneyball-style stats geeks had long been calmly predicting a modest win for Obama. Despite this, come election night itself, the news wheeled out its most bombastic graphics and tried to play up the drama of a race it insisted was still too close to call.
This presidential contest could be a squeaker till the end.
Although in the event the race was called fairly early on, leading to jubilant scenes amongst Obamaites and slightly less jubilant scenes from the Romney faithful. Then Romney himself came out to give a concession speech, which incredibly he managed to deliver without calling absolutely everyone watching a peasant and an arsehole. Sky News, meanwhile, seemed more interested in another great American orator, Mr. Dick Uiz.
It feels good to see all the hard work be paid off.
The thing about will.i.am is he spent so long on British screens this year, the American media seemed to just forget who he was.
We're just kind of giving you a little bit of what you see here. That's Wyclef Jean.
By December, everyone needed cheering up, and Fox News was happy to oblige.
Great Britain may want to start building a paparazzi-proof delivery room somewhere because Prince William's wife, Kate, is preggers.
Twinkly, tit-witted showbiz bumwash slingers Entertainment Tonight covered the story with CGI mock-ups showing what the child won't look like, and loads of other old shit.
How much weight will she gain? And will they have royal twins? And what this royal psychic knows?
Nothing.
To celebrate Christmas, Adland highlighted the hilarious subjugation of women. First, Boots unflinchingly depicted the problems facing cash-strapped single-parent families.
Let's get you back out there, Mum.
Tragic, really. They need the income from her walking the streets.
Good luck.
Then Asda portrayed Mum as little more than a member of household staff who doesn't even get to sit on a chair at lunch and has to squat near the edge like a dog begging for scraps. But the winner in the Magdalen Christmas ad stakes was John Lewis, which delivered this heartstring-tugging tale of a snowman who undertakes an epic journey to buy a hat and gloves for the snow girl of his dreams.
Of course, it's worth bearing in mind that since snowmen can't move of their own accord, he's had to be built by hand for each stage of this journey, presumably by children. So this whole thing is really just despicable propaganda for child labour. But these attempts to cheer the population were nothing compared to the finest Christmas broadcast ever fashioned, Towie Live, which combined live, unedited conversations between people who can barely speak.
And the thing is, right, I can't believe how much acts are going on. Like, how much acts are there?
And on-stage performances from people-shaped things that definitely can't sing.
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic is fantastic.
And sometimes, excitingly, both of those things together at once.
Well done, Hard, at the end of the day, this is why I
kiss me like the fellow once said, ain't that a kick in the head?
Well, that was 2012, and guess what? The world didn't end. Unless it did after I recorded this link, obviously, and you're a future space archaeologist watching this using some kind of temporal transponder system. You've connected directly to my fossilised remains in the future, in which case, well done, aren't you clever? I'll see the rest of you again in a few weeks. Until then, get out!
Also in reflective mood, next on BBC Two, a collection of the best bits from QI.